The MCAT Cars Podcast, session number 19. The Cars section of the MCAT gives thousands of pre-meds nightmares every night. Whether you're an ESL student, lack confidence while reading, or a slow reader like me, Jack Westin and the medical school headquarters are here to help you score higher in every section so you can be confident you're ready to get the MCAT score of your dreams. Welcome to the MCAT Cars Podcast. Thank you for taking some time to join me today. My name is Dr. Ryan Gray, your host here every week. If you are new here, thank you for finding us and trusting us to take some of your time, hopefully help you understand what it takes to do well in the car section. How do we do that? Well, I have Jack Westin with me, who is the premier MCAT Cars tutor online. If you are struggling with the cars section of the MCAT or any section of the MCAT Cars course that Jack Westin offers will get you to where you need to go. You can get a $100 off coupon by texting the word CARS coupon, that's all one word, to 44222. So if you're listening to this on your phone, just send a text again to 44222 with the word CARS coupon in there. And that will give you a link directly to his site with a $100 off coupon for his MCAT Cars course. When you use that coupon, I do get a small commission. So thank you for supporting me here at MedEd Media. Let's go ahead and jump in and dive into another article to help you understand how to break down these sentences and how to break down and understand these articles and passages. All right, Jack Westin back for some more MCAT Cars, some more critical thinking, critical reading. Hopefully this week we don't have an author who wants to tell us how America is bad at building things.
Yeah, this one's interesting because I don't think it relates to a lot of students, but who knows? Maybe you have some interest in finances, and it's more an economy passage. Are we going to see something like this on the real test? It's very possible, very, very possible. So it is more pop culture / relevant to people. Like, people are aware of this stuff, but who knows how much most students know about this. And I like these kinds of passages because now, after you read this, you can go to your friends and tell them about, machine learning and stuff, so who knows? Okay.
All right. You're going to be an expert reading five paragraphs here with us.
Yeah.
All right. So let's jump in. A Bloomberg article. First paragraph. Machine learning is enabling investors to tap huge data sets such as social media postings in ways that no mere human could. So the author right away is talking about machine learning, which for some people will be like, I don't know what that is. That sounds scary. But it looks like what they're saying is it's using things like social media and data, potentially sorting through that or looking at things that a lot more volume that maybe a human could.
Yeah, but they mention a key word in this sentence. Is it just regular people, or is it designed for someone in particular?
Investors. Yeah.
Investors, right. So investors meaning people who are trying to make money, right? Okay.
Yet, despite the enormous potential, its record remains mixed. So potential, I guess if we go back to that word investors, potential of making money, its record remains mixed, meaning maybe it's not doing potentially what they hope it could do.
Yeah, exactly. And we see the same thing happen on this article as it did in the previous article we looked at last week, the word yet. It's another contrast word. So based on that, what direction do you think the author prefers? That machine learning is helpful to investors or not helpful to investors?
Probably not helpful.
Yeah, probably not helpful. Now they're going to probably expand on that and, to some degree. Okay, let's go ahead.
The Eureka Hedge AI Hedge Fund Index, which tracks the returns of 13 hedge funds that use machine learning, has gained only 7% a year for the past 5 years, while the S&P 500 returned 13% annually. And so now the author's giving us proof or data that shows why its record maybe isn't very good, and saying it was only 7% a year when the normal S&P 500 was 13%.
Yeah, and look, you don't need to know what the normal you know, annual percentage return should be, right? They're telling you that there is some kind of difference. You're expected to be sharp enough to realize that this is significantly bad, right?
Mhm.
Compared to just regular investing. So, and now you can go to your friends and say, hey, you know what? It only returned 7%. I should get 13%, or, or whatever. So it's interesting to learn as you read.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
year, the Eureka Hedge benchmark dropped 5% through September. So it looks like more information about this machine learning not doing very well.
Yeah, exactly. Now we don't have to know the exact percentages that make it bad, but you should know that this is an example of how maybe using machines isn't so helpful,
Mhm.
right? Machine learning isn't so helpful after all.
Yeah. Okay. Next paragraph, paragraph 2. One of the potential pitfalls for machine learning strategies is the extremely low signal to noise ratio in financial markets, says Marcos Lopez de Prado. And so we have a name here potentially that we need to remember, Marcos, and he is potentially saying here's one reason why these machine learning systems aren't working well. And the extremely low signal to noise ratio, for me, I don't know what that means at this point.
No one does,
Yeah.
right? But this is where students crack.
Yep.
They'll see that and go, "Man, I knew I should have studied more
I knew
about
I should have gone
market."
to physical therapy school.
Yeah. So, you don't have to know anything about low signal to noise. If they want you to know what that is, they should explain it, right? So be confident at this point. Don't give up on yourself. Who knows what's going to show up and what they're going to say. I like to look at MCAT kind of like a puzzle, right? It's like you're going in a maze and you're going in one direction and all of a sudden you see a wall, right? You can either stop at that wall, look at that wall for eternity, or you can turn your body, go to the other direction, right? Maybe you'll learn something as you keep going in that new direction. It's a new path, scary, but hey, that's life. You have to take new paths, take new directions.
Yeah.
Okay. So by the way,
I stopped that sentence early. The end part of the sentence is his credentials. Marcos joined AQR Capital Management as head of machine learning in September and is the author of the 2018 book Advances in Financial Machine Learning. So just propping him up as an expert.
Great. Okay.
All right. Machine learning algorithms will always identify a pattern, even if there is none, he says. And so he's potentially saying, here's why there's an issue, is that they're maybe forcing a pattern when there isn't one.
What do you think low signal to noise probably means?
Something about patterns.
Yeah, about alerting of patterns, right? Looking at patterns. Something to do with signal to noise probably is, looking for patterns and understanding things. Signals meaning patterns, right? Who knows? Okay, let's go ahead and keep reading.
In other words, the algorithms can view flukes as patterns and hence are likely to identify false strategies. So again, the strategies, if there isn't a pattern, the algorithms may see something and identify a strategy even though there isn't anything there.
Okay.
It takes a deep knowledge of the markets to apply machine learning successfully to financial series, Lopez de Prado says. And so he's now saying, here's what you need to be successful. You have to have this deep knowledge of markets to apply machine learning. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but maybe I'm reading that he is saying that we can use machine learning, but we still need more knowledge to apply it.
Right. Now, this is another dilemma many students have is how deep do I need to understand this stuff, right? I like to look at MCAT cards in another way as well, which is kind of like a camera, like an iPhone or Android camera. You can zoom in and zoom out, right, with your camera. If you stay too zoomed in, you're going to miss the bigger picture of this paragraph. So I don't think this last sentence makes a big difference here. I mean, it's important to know that you need to apply deep knowledge to markets to be successful. But that's beyond the point, right? The point of this paragraph is really about how machines are not necessarily great at finding patterns, or if they do find patterns, there really wasn't one to begin with, right?
Yeah.
It's causing issues that way. So something to do with low signal to noise, understanding that machines are messing up with pattern recognition. That's what really matters. So you have to zoom out. You have to go back to get that. And if you're too zoomed in on every little sentence you're reading, you're going to miss that big picture.
Okay.
Okay, great. So yeah, the big picture here is this idea of how machine learning finds patterns when there really aren't any. And that's what, Marcos Lopez believes, the Prado. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Nigel Kulajan echoes that view. So another name, and looks like he's agreeing with Marcos.
Right.
The founder and chief investment officer at Quest Partners, a New York-based systematic macro hedge fund that manages 1.7 billion, says that quants coming out of finance programs and high-tech companies often expect to create optimizations at a much higher level of precision than is warranted in finance. Whoa. So if I were reading this passage, I'd probably just move on to the next sentence because there was a lot of stuff in there that I didn't understand. And I would say, I hope there isn't a question about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it brings up a name,
Yep.
and you probably have to know what this person is saying. But what he's saying is so tough to understand unless you're really into this stuff, right? Quants coming out of finance programs and high-tech companies often expect to create optimizations at a much higher level of precision than is warranted in finance. So again, something to do with precision. I don't know exactly, but maybe accuracy, which is kind of what we were talking about in the previous paragraph. What you got to know is not exactly what Nigel says. That's not important. You got to know that Nigel echoes that view. What does that mean? Echoes that view. It means that Nigel agrees with Marcos.
Yeah.
So regardless of what the details are, we know that Nigel and Marcos agree that maybe machine learning has some problems, right? They identify things that aren't there. So it's kind of related.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that's, I think, all we need to know. Go ahead.
They're coming with a mindset that we're going to conquer the world with big data, Kulajian says. So I don't know what he's referring to here as they are.
They love doing this. So
Yeah.
there is the public at large.
Okay.
Right? Most people, right? Whenever something goes wrong, right? We always want to kind of blame the public, right? Why does life have to be so hard, right? So hard relative to what, right? Relative to other people, other systems, the system that we live in. They are is referring to the system, right? The people that run the system. So in this case, they are is referring to what people mostly believe.
Okay. In finance, though, the market regime is not static. And markets aren't closed systems like a chess game. The market regime, I don't know what regime he's talking about, is not static. Markets aren't closed systems. So potentially, maybe he's saying, look, you can't use what I think about chess and machine learning is we have computer models and algorithms that can dominate chess now. And he's saying, look, markets aren't like a chess game and you can't just create an algorithm to master it.
Yeah. I mean, it does say closed systems, which means that like maybe it's an open system, right? So, but we don't know exactly what that means. So let's go ahead.
Okay. You can have one little pin drop that can basically make you lose over 20 years of returns, he says. So again, just something may happen in that market, and I'm assuming he's talking about with machine learning or in general, you can lose lots of money.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, again, kind of going back with the idea of not accurate, there's issues with it. I mean, I think that's all you really need to know, but it does bring in this idea that, what if some element that machine learning hasn't calculated occurs? Then the machine learning won't know exactly what to do, right? I mean, what if some event happens, right? It can erase 20 years of returns, 20 years of work or investment. But again, those are details not as important as knowing the big picture that Kulajan agrees with Marcos that there are some problems with machine learning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Consider one risk-on strategy that had worked well in the decades since the financial crisis: bottom fishing equity indexes. Okay, so now I'm just I wish I would have done some economics in college so that I would understand all of these words. So risk-on strategy, I don't know what that means, and bottom fishing equity index, I don't know what that means. I know financial crisis.
Yeah. So, I mean, we don't need to know what bottom fishing equity indexes are, right? I mean, I don't think anyone's going to go to their friend and go, oh, by the way, how's your bottom fishing equity index going, right? But we can still figure it out, right? You don't have to know these words to be confident in understanding what's going on. So, as you read this, it's just saying that something is working well, right, since the financial crisis. What is that thing that's been working well? Bottom fishing equity indexes. I don't know what that is, but hey, it's doing well, right? So let's see what that strategy is. Maybe they'll explain what that strategy is. Go ahead.
Everyone's buying the dips, Kula Jian says. So I see bottom fishing and I see dips. So maybe there's something about that.
Right. Right.
Know.
Maybe the strategy is buying the dips. Man, dips could mean, bottom. I don't know what the bottom is. Maybe it's, buying a stock at a very low price. But again, you don't have to know what that is. You just, you've been able to know that there's a strategy we're talking about. That strategy includes buying the dips, whatever that is. Let's go ahead, keep reading.
There are all these people who have learned to basically suppress the vol or volatility. Suppressing the volatility. So he's saying, look, people have learned to do this. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
well, that's the strategy.
Yeah.
Whether it's, I guess it's been working for them. But again, we don't really know what the volatility is, how they suppress it, and that not knowing bothers students. Not knowing, oh, what is this? What is suppressing? What is volatility? What are we talking about? You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable not knowing things. It's kind of the opposite of a university class. Usually students go into a university class and they try to learn everything from every angle, right? For that week, right? They try to read the book on the topic. They look at their notes. They ask the professor. You don't have that time. You don't have that luxury on this CARS passage. So you have to go with whatever they give you and have faith that it's enough to answer the questions.
Yeah. Okay. If you use machine learning, you can implement dozens of versions of this strategy. So I guess this is a good thing that the author is saying, look, if you use machine learning, you can use this strategy that is working, suppressing the volatility.
Right. Yeah.
And do a lot of it.
Right.
Okay. The risk, according to Kulijian, is that the relentless bull markets that made such strategies work so well was driven by central bank liquidity, and that's being pulled away now. So the author is quoting or relating it to Kulijian is saying, look, what used to work isn't necessarily going to work now because of this liquidity issue.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Meanwhile, skew, a measure of tail risk, more words that are just freaking me out, is implying the S&P 500 could fall 30%. So probably the big takeaway from the sentence is, look, that something's happening and the markets could take a huge hit.
Right. And this is kind of going back to what Kulijian was saying, right? That unknown factors, things that the machine doesn't account for, open system environments can affect things dramatically. And it seems like it's affecting the bottom fishing equity strategy, which may work well, right? It might work well for a while with machines, but then you have this issue, right, where the central bank decides to be pulled away, and that messes things up. Again, this is that zooming in. If you zoom in too much, you're going to understand this stuff, and that's great, but they're not going to ask questions about the central bank. They're not going to ask questions about bottom fishing equity. They're going to ask questions about how Kulijian believes that, the system, this machine learning does not work well. The big picture. So don't be too zoomed in, because if you're too zoomed in, you're going to lose track of that big picture. Okay, go ahead.
In August, that was a
Coolidge, yeah.
That was another early end of a sentence. In August, the CBOE skew index, which tracks out of the money index options, reached a record high. So I have no idea what any of these words mean other than it's saying the CBOE reached a high in August.
Right.
Okay. If you're buying the dips with machine learning, Cooligian says, it's easy to congratulate yourself on using much more complex model optimization and lose sight of the larger risks. So it looks like he's warning people, if you're congratulating yourself using these things, you may be missing something.
Right.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, a lot going on here. And one of the things that you did, which kind of emulates a lot of students, is that, like that frustration, that sigh, like, what the heck am I reading?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's painful to read this. It's really painful. And students blame themselves. That's, I think, the difference between like a high scoring student and someone who typically just kind of gives up halfway, is how willing are you to persevere? How willing are you to just keep going when times are tough, right? And that's what they're trying to do. The MCAT's an intimidation test. They want to intimidate you. They want to see, hey, do you really want this bad enough? Because if you really want this, you're willing to go through this hell. You're willing to read this boring passage about something you could care less about. And that's what, makes it so difficult for many students is, hey, it's not relatable. It's not something I like to read, and it's something that seems very convoluted. But in actuality, you can still get the big picture, and that's all you really need.
Yeah, and just from a neuropsychological standpoint, something that I know about, I don't know, Jack, if you know this, is typically what a student will do in this situation. I know what I would do is I start thinking to myself, man, this sucks. I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what I'm reading. Yet I'll keep reading, and those messages I'm telling myself are filling. We have very limited spots to keep information for a short period of time. And we're filling those spots with negative thoughts instead of filling it with the information we need to answer the questions.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what's happening. You're distracting yourself, right? With things that you don't need to tell yourself. So absolutely. And that happens for many students. And it's kind of like going into a tournament, and while you're competing, right? Whatever that tournament is, or if you're, part of an event of some musical group or whatever, all of a sudden you start doubting yourself, right? It's not going to go well. Okay. So you got to believe in yourself at least till the end of this passage, at the very least, right? So yeah. Okay.
All right. Next paragraph. Machine learning isn't really new, says Robert Fry. So another name here, and he's saying, look, it's not new. Fry, in the late 1980s, started a hedge fund that was absorbed a few years later into Renaissance Technologies, where it became the nucleus of the statistical arbitrage strategy in the enormously successful Medallion Fund. So, I don't know, big takeaways here is Fry had a hedge fund that was absorbed into this other company, Renaissance Technologies, and that became essential to a successful Medallion Fund.
Right. Okay.
Whatever that means. You hear all this stuff about machine learning and AI, Fry says. So I guess he's talking to us, the public, saying, hey, look, you hear about all this stuff. Most of those techniques, however, have been around for decades, and we, in fact, used a lot of them at Renaissance, he says. So it looks like Fry is coming in saying, hey, this isn't so new, it's not so cool, we've been doing this forever.
Okay.
The fundamental processes that we're talking about here are a combination of advanced statistics, computationally intensive statistical analysis, and then the neural network type branch where you're looking at these models, which are basically classifiers. Oh, all right. So he's saying that, look, it's just a bunch of math. It's just statistics and then some sort of branch, neural network type branch, looking at models and whatever classifiers means.
Right. So what's the big picture of this paragraph?
The big picture here is that this machine learning and everything that we've been learning about for the previous paragraphs isn't new. It's been around for a while.
That's it. So the takeaway here is that machine learning can have problems, even though it's been around, right? There are issues with it that we don't really notice, and that we have to be cautious with machine learning in general. this was a great example of a passage that, hey, you might not know what's going on, but you could still understand the big points. And that's what MCAT's all about. So if you're struggling with these kinds of passages, preparation is key. Prepare yourself. Practice these kinds of passages. Practice what's challenging for you. And another key is to, even though everyone's gonna complain at some degree, right, when they read something like this. But are you gonna let that fester? Are you gonna let that build up to the point where you burn out, to the point where you just give up halfway through the passage? Or will you balance yourself and go exercise and eat well and get ready to attack this one more day, right? One more day, one more week until you get it down, right? And I don't think anyone will be perfect at all passages they read. That's like a myth. I don't think anyone is perfect at reading everything they read. But if you're open-minded and you're willing to embrace whatever the passage is saying, you have a better chance of succeeding. So hopefully you take that and use that when you practice next time.
All right, so there you have it. Another great article for you. Again, if you want more in-depth understanding of the CARS section and how to do well on it, again, 44222, text the word CARS coupon to 44222, and that will take you directly to the MCAT CARS course where you can get $100 off the course from Jack Westin. I hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time here on the MCAT CARS podcast.